Hi, I'm Ben, we're Battle Systems. Welcome to the Crypts and Caverns Dungeon Upgrade Pack tutorial video. Before we get started, there's a few quick tips which will apply to almost any build. Quickly run through those now. For many builds, we'll use these plastic clips to put walls together and things. There's a range of different types, most of them are self-explanatory. There are a few that you should pay a little bit of attention to. We have some slightly shorter versions of the straight clip, and these two in particular can look quite similar. As you can see, they build at different angles, and so if you're finding yourself getting a bit confused by how a corner is going together, it's because you've got two different types of clip and you need to use the correct one for it. The main difference between them is that one forms a right angle and the other doesn't. From time to time you might come across a slot which is a little too tight. It's a good idea to have a craft knife on hand for this sort of thing. And you can just slice down the edge of it to adjust the gap, or another good tip is to use a pair of clippers and just snip and adjust, and then you should find you have a nice neat fit. Some of our terrain has half cuts in it. This allows us to add things like opening doors or to create round shapes for things like barrels. The first time you bend these, it's worth taking a little bit of time just to open it correctly. And if you can see here, for this door for example, you just need to make sure you support it the first time you open it to make sure that the bend happens in the correct place, and then your door will open and close without causing any issues with the rest of the wall piece. For most of this work you're going to just be using your hands to pop out the sheets, but it's useful to have some glue, some clippers, a craft knife and a cutting mat just to hand so you can do the certain parts which I'll show you as we go through. In this pack we've got one sheet which has these two elements on it. We have two sheets of sheet 2, one sheet of sheet 3, one sheet of sheet 4, one sheet of sheet 5, and finally one sheet of sheet 6. Sheet 1 is very straightforward, mostly consists of this large floor tile. It also comes with some rubble that you can scatter around and this staircase. When you're popping out the pieces, don't forget that this part of the stair is in amongst the bits of rubble, so keep that to one side with your stairway when you're building that. First place to start with these stairs is with all of these half cuts. You do need to take a little bit of time with them. Some of them are quite fragile until they're locked into place, so just work your way around. I start with the vertical ones first. Then once you've bent all of those around, you can then go to the horizontal ones, and then just take your time reinforcing each one as you bend it with your other fingers. And then you'll also have some other half cuts here on the end of every other step. And you'll see it's already wanting to try and form a spiral. So what we need to do is help it along with these slots on every other stair. You slide them in together and they lock each other in place. And then the final step is this clip, and that holds the bottom together. You just make sure all of your stairs are sitting in the right place. And here's your spiral staircase. Sheet 2 comes with some more floor tiles, some crenellations, some buttresses, treasure chest, and most importantly, some gargoyles. These wall elements are very straightforward. Crenellations just clip onto the top of an existing wall, create a more finished look. The buttress just has a series of half cuts on it. Fold those through, and then you just hook them into the slots at the bottom of the wall. Like so. And then the gargoyles just have their wings slotted onto their back. Use a clip to attach them to a corner or wherever you like. And that's all of those nice and easily added to your wall. If you've ever built any of our chests, then the treasure chest will be very familiar to you. It goes together just the same as all the others, it's just a little bit more fancy looking. So we'll slot in the sides. And then we'll need to grab a bit of glue just to stick these base part in and the lid. It's just a matter of putting a little bit of glue around the bottom, making sure you've got the wooden piece for the bottom, lining it up, slotting it into place, making sure it's level. And then for the top we just need to locate this piece in the middle of the lid. And then you can just pop the treasure inside. You could glue that in, but I'd probably leave it loose, and then you can use it as a way of marking that you've already looted this chest, or as a reminder that you've got it on you. And that's that done. The plinth is almost identical. The only thing to watch out for with this is there is a front and a back to it, so make sure when you're building it you align the taller part with the taller part. And then the final touch is to add a little weapon or something to the back on the little holder here. Sheet 3 doesn't have a lot that we need to construct on it, it's mostly walls. So the only things we need to put together are these hanging furs and this carrier. We'll pop these out and I'll show you how to do those. The wall hangings are straightforward to put together. You have 2 clips and then one that goes across the middle. You slot the long piece into these clips at the top. And that leaves you some little slots here for you to hook the fur into. On a later sheet we'll have some banners and they work exactly the same way, and you'll just drop a banner in instead of this. The carrier has 2 parts. We just have to fold the sides in and then fold in the ends. Then it's just a matter of lining up the slots at each end. The slots are nice and tight, so it'll just hold itself together with friction, and you can slide it into the carrier, and that's all done. If you find you've got a slightly looser connection on yours, you could dab a bit of glue on it just to hold it nice and secure. Sheet 4 is some more scatter items and also some alcoves, so we'll pop those out and I'll show you how to build those. While we're here, we'll quickly build one of these little stools. These go together in the same way as the chairs that you'll find in our other sets. You start by slotting the base in and then take the seat, slide it in through the other slot, and that is done. These alcoves let you replace a standard wall with something a little bit more interesting. They're really easy to put together. I'll show you how to do that now. So the first part you're going to need is the back of the alcove, and we're going to take the top and line it up with these slots here. And we'll just use our fingers to hold that together, and then we can slot it in with this base, and that's already holding it nice and tight for us. And then what we do with this is we take this wall panel, and we've left the texture in the middle, so you can take that out. And if you want to use this as a secret passage later, you just slot it back in again. So we'll just put that to one side for a moment. Then we take the alcove itself, and there are some slots here just above the hole. You need to use the inner two, line them up with the sconces, and then slide them into place. There's a little detail here that just helps fill out the space. You just drop it in, and it holds itself in with gravity. And then this alcove has its own occupant, which is this gargoyle. We'll just slot him together. And we're going to pop him inside. There you go. And then on the back of the wall, you first place down this larger piece, and then on top of it, this other one. The second alcove is broadly the same, but has a few extra steps. You can recognise it by the wooden frame for the wall that you need to use. And we'll do the same as we did last time. We'll first start by slotting in the top. But this time we've got a few extra shelves, and if you look at the texture on the back, you'll see that there's one here that has a rust texture to it. We need to make sure that we're putting these hooks through on that level, so we'll just attach those in the same way. And then we'll attach the last shelf down below it. You might have to hold them in with your fingers while you're doing it. Pull the sides in, it'll hold them nice and snug. And then you can take the base, dip it in. It's nice and solid. Just like before, we take the wall and slide it in on the two inner slots. And that gives us the basic shape. And then round here at the back, we have this, which is used to hold the weapons on. We just place it over these clips that are sticking out. And then just like before, we're going to place the larger base in there. Then we have this weapon rack here. We can slot that in on the top, like so. And then that holds any weapons or other items that you want to put there. You could just glue them on if you were going to keep this solid. And then the final touch for this will obviously be to put some books on the bookshelf. And you can take your time with this, and you can glue them in a nice row or place them in piles. But it's usually a good idea to use a spot of glue on them and just stick them in place, and they can stay there permanently then. On sheet 5 we've got a portcullis, we've got a nice little hidden doorway, and we've got a forge. So I'm going to pop those out and I'll show you how those all go together. The anvil comes in two parts, the anvil itself and the base that it stands on. First thing you'll need to do is take the short edge and slide the smaller base into it. Then you'll need to attach the top of the anvil into the longer slot. This is a place where I use glue because once you've stuck this together, it'll easily fit in your box and you can store it that way. And then fold through the half cuts of the box, and then use this frame and slide it inside it, carefully pushing it down so that you don't damage it as you do so. Then you can just glue the anvil on top of it, and then that's finished, and you can put it away until you need it. Next we have the portcullis. This is really simple, it should take you just a few minutes to put together. Just be slightly careful when you're folding through these half cuts because they are quite narrow. So bend those around, supporting them the whole time. Same on the other side. There we go. And then these slot into the top of the door frame. And put the tabs through the bottom. And that gives you a nice slot here. And the portcullis slides in from above. And this allows you to pull it out. The forge is very similar to the alcoves that we've already done, so we can use all the same techniques that we used there. So, first step as before is to create forge itself. Then we can place top in using these tabs, hold it all together with the fire pit in this case. Place the grate inside. And then slot it onto the wall. You can see where it needs to go because there's some smoke damage from the chimney. That gives us the basics. Then the fire goes together just using these slots. This one's a little bit narrow, so I'm going to just trim it. And then the final touch is to put these parts around the base. And then, you of course need a hammer. So we'll just place that nearby so it's within reach. And that's your forge. You could glue this, but it is pretty solidly together, so it's up to you really. So here's one of my favourite parts of this set. It's a classic secret door hidden behind a bookcase. So if you've ever built any of our bookcases before, this is essentially the same, except that we need to make sure that this is a top so we can make it slide in this slot here. So we'll take the sides of the bookcase and slot them into the back, and then it's just a matter of placing each shelf in place, making sure that you finish up with this one that has the sliding part at the top. And then it will fit into the door. And you can slide it along to reveal the passage, or slide it shut to hide it. And then it's just a matter of filling up your bookcase with books. Just using a spot of glue if you want to. And that gives you your secret passageway hidden behind a bookcase. Okay, so now we're on the last sheet. We've got the strong room walls, we've got tapestries, we've got a balcony, and then we've got some decorative items that we can place around to make the place look more authentic. Okay, so that's all popped out now. You've got the bits of scatter here. We've obviously got some valuables to place inside the strong room. We also have these pictures. You could just leave them as part of the loot within the chamber, or if you preferred, you could take any wall and you could glue them onto it, or if you'd rather have more flexibility, you could pop some blue tack or similar on the back of them and then just temporarily affix them to the wall where you want them to be. Next we have the balcony, and this one is a series of half cuts. We'll just bend those through until we've got the shape that we need. And then we slide this part into the slot here and hook it through the slots on the side. You can glue these in. They hold themselves in place, especially once it's attached to the wall, but if you just want to store it more easily, you can pop a bit of glue on. And then it will just slot on top of the wall. You could also use a clip if you like to make it a bit more secure. The vault walls work essentially like any other wall. So we have 2 normal wall pieces, and you can clip those into the rest of your terrain build using clips as usual. And then the one that is slightly more involved is this door section. We just need a spot of glue to get that one all finished. We'll put those to the side for a second. And for this one, we have the door element itself. So if we carefully release that, it's got a half cut on it. So if you, like any other door, support it the first time you open it. To give it some more interest, we're going to stick this 3-dimensional element on, and that lines up with the elements underneath. So a tiny spot of glue will hold that in place plenty. And then we have a lever to open the vault from the inside, and that can be clipped onto the back of the door. To make it look a little neater, there's this small element here. We can just glue that in, just making sure you've got the short side here so that you can clip it onto the wall. Okay, so here is a dungeon set all built up, and it's looking amazing, but we can give it a quick makeover and change the look and feel of it by incorporating some elements in from the Crypts and Caverns set that we've been building up. Let's quickly do that now, and I'll show you how it looks. And just like that, you have a whole new layout. You've got a strong room here full of treasure to raid. You've got secret doorways for people to discover and crawl through. A blacksmith's forge. You've got an area sealed off with a portcullis. And all sorts of exciting new elements to incorporate into your games of Maladum or Dungeons & Dragons or whatever game it is that you're playing. Of course, one of the great things about this set is it's not only an amazing dungeon, but it also makes a fantastic ruined castle. If you give me 2 seconds, I'll show you how that works. Here I've used our Frosty Crags mat to create a semi-ruined castle with interior areas which are slightly more protected, like this vault here, and some external areas which have got a bit of snow coming in on them. This would work just as well with a grass mat or something similar to that, to create a more summery feel. But as you can see, this works just as well as an external piece as it does as an internal dungeon.